Thank you, Chair. We're live on YouTube, so I'll hand over to you.
Good morning. Good morning and welcome to the meeting of the Exmouth Queen's Drive Delivery Group on 19th of October 2021. I am your Chair, Councillor Nick Hookway. Based on the decision of our extraordinary meeting of Council on the 26th of July, I would like to remind both members and public attending or watching that this Council has delegated much of its decision-taking powers to our senior officers. This is for a short time only, to the 17th of January 2022, and is due to concerns relating to COVID risk. Consequently, this meeting is being held remotely and on a consultative basis only. We will continue to adhere as closely as possible to the procedural rules detailed in our Constitution. However, where this meeting would normally have decided a matter, it will now make a recommendation to a senior officer. The officer will then take that recommendation into account when making their decision. The meeting can be viewed live online and will be recorded. Please bear this in mind throughout the meeting. Therefore, may I remind colleagues to be careful with their language and that the code of conduct applies throughout our meeting. We reserve the right to remove and disconnect any participant disrupting the meeting by whatever means. As this meeting is dependent upon internet connection and a power supply, in the event of a break in the internet connection or a power cut, please bear with us as we try to reconnect. If we're not able to reconnect after 15 minutes, this meeting will be adjourned and reconvened at a later date. Please check the committee page on our website for further details. Good colleagues, please ensure that your microphone is muted when you are not speaking. This will help avoid any disturbance from background noise. Could you also please keep your points short and not interrupt when someone else is speaking? Should you wish to comment, please raise your electronic hand and wait to be called. As councillors have been, all councillors have been sent the agenda for today's meeting. Any members of the public can view the agenda by visiting our website at www.eastdevon.gov.uk. We will now start the meeting by doing a roll call of committee members here present. Can you now please unmute your microphone, and when you hear your name, please confirm by saying present. When you have confirmed you're present, please mute your microphone again. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Hookway.
Present.
Councillor Arnott.
Present.
Councillor Ledger.
Present.
Councillor Rowland.
Present, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong.
Present.
Thank you, Councillor Davey.
Present.
Councillor Desaram.
Present, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor.
Present.
Councillor Whibley.
Present.
Councillor Bailey.
Present.
Councillor Gazzard.
Present. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. Right, agenda item 1, public speaking. There are no members of the public registered to speak. Agenda item 2, minutes of the previous consultative meeting held on the 7th of September 2021. Do any members of this committee have comments on the minutes of the previous consultative meeting held on the 7th of September 2021? If so, please raise your electronic hand. If there are no hands raised, I will take it that you are happy that the minutes are received and noted. Right, I cannot see any hands raised, therefore those minutes are approved. Right, agenda item 3, apologies. Sarah, do we have any apologies, please?
We do, Chair, from Councillor Andrew Coleman, Councillor Paul Hayward and Councillor Chris Wright, and Mr. Peter Gilpin from LED Leisure normally attends these meetings and has also sent apologies.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, right, so agenda item 4, declarations of interest. Sarah.
Thank you, Councillor Hookway.
Yes, a personal one, please. I wish to state that I was chair before elected of the Save Exmouth Seafront campaign until May 2019, that is. And I confirm that I am not predetermined on any matters relating to the seafront or the Queen's Drive redevelopment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott.
None, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Ledger.
None, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowland.
None, thanks, Sarah.
Councillor Armstrong.
None. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davey.
Only that I'm also an Exmouth town councillor, and that's a personal interest.
Thank you. Councillor De Sarum.
Like Councillor Davey, a personal interest, Exmouth Town Councillor for Little Maud.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
None.
Councillor Whibley.
Yeah, I too am an Exmouth town councillor. Other than that, none. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bailey.
I'm an Exmouth Town Councillor. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. And Councillor Gazzard.
Likewise, Sarah, personal, I'm an Exmouth Town Councillor.
Thank you very much. Over to you, Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. Right, so Part A, matters for consideration and public session. Agenda item 5, resourcing. We have a verbal update from Tim Child. Tim, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. Okay, so this is a short verbal update following a similar verbal update at last delivery group meeting in September, but setting out some key progress that's taken place since then. So in September, I reported that it had proven difficult to generate interest in the types of roles that we were creating. This, together with concerns around the breadth of skills required and also issues around staff retention to support us deliver on the projects. So in the September meeting, so back in September, we were at that point looking at possibly appointing an external organisation to support us. At that meeting, some members did raise concerns about that approach and really sort of emphasising the importance of the balance between procuring the necessary expertise, but at the same time retaining control of the work with in-house by members and indeed officers like myself. So following that September meeting, we then took a trim track approach, looking at both an external organisation helping us deliver, but also direct in-house appointments once again. And a meeting took place shortly after the last delivery group meeting between the leader, the chair of the delivery group, myself and our chief executive to discuss how best to resource this project. Anyway, things then moved on. The external organisation dropped away from showing an interest in this particular project. Very disappointing. We'd put quite a lot of time in working with them over the summer, building up their sort of background knowledge to a point where hopefully they were going to be making a sort of a formal bid. But unfortunately that dropped away, really because of the same issue that we're finding as an authority generally. They lacked the resource to be able to deliver the projects to our timescales. So that was disappointing, but nevertheless we moved on from that. So that then led us back to the only credible option being to appoint both posts internally. So the 2 posts were then taken to our senior management team for formal approval. The 2 posts are firstly a project manager for Place and Prosperity Exmouth projects. That's on a 2-year fixed term contract. And the second, more junior post is the Senior Project Officer post for Place and Prosperity Exmouth projects. So both only for Exmouth projects, and that's an 18-month fixed term contract. Job descriptions and salary levels have now been approved by HR. And I've also agreed with HR how we're going to advertise for the posts to best improve the chances of appointments being made in what is an extremely challenging market out there. I've agreed with HR that we are going to appoint an external recruitment company to lead a managed recruitment campaign with an agreed campaign plan that both HR and I have seen and agreed. it's a slightly different approach from just going out to a recruitment company and just paying a percentage fee. This approach, very much, we will be working in partnership with them. They will create a microsite on their website whereby they can include lots and lots of detail about the project, but also about the roles and what it's like to work for East Devon as an employer. And by doing so, and we've worked with this particular company on a previous occasion, it's worked very successful in that they can actually attract both those who are actively looking for new roles, but also those that they refer to as sort of passive candidates who aren't necessarily looking, but are on the mailing lists and with a little bit of prompting can come forward. So I'm today finalising the appointment of the recruitment consultant. I've just had a meeting with them immediately before this meeting, and we're looking to now finalise the actual advert itself. As I say, job descriptions are already in place and have already been shared with them together with structure charts and everything else that they need as sort of background documents. But there's still a few things just sort of finalised in terms of the micro websites. And we're then looking to go live on the appointments on the 1st of November, with interviews taking place in early December. If we're successful in appointing, which hopefully we will be, then we should have candidates in post by early spring. I'm making an assumption there that the majority of candidates are likely to have a notice period of 2 or 3 months, but of course that might not be the case. There is obviously a risk that we're not going to be able to appoint, but taking the approach that we've taken, or that we're taking, we are maximising those chances of attracting suitable candidates. So I'm conscious there's another delivery group meeting at the end of November. And I'll obviously be able to provide a further update then, and obviously thereafter. So hopefully that's a much more positive position than we were at the last delivery group meeting. And obviously happy, I can see there's quite a few hands going up, so I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Tim. Okay, I'll first invite non-members to speak by raising their electronic hand. Once non-members have spoken, I'll invite members of the committee. Right, so let's see if we can see any non-members. I can't see any hands from non-members. Okay, so let's go to Councillor Dan Ledger, please.
Thanks very much, Chair. Tim, I know that we, across the organisation, we've slipped below median pay in some of the job roles that we've got, and there is a job review going, well, across the board, and especially for surveyors. Are we advertising this job as a medium pay employer, or is this at our current levels, which will reduce the chances of success?
Okay, so the two posts, the project manager and senior project officer, are direct replicas of, well, a few tweaks, but in effect direct replicas of two existing posts we have within the organisation. So therefore, to answer the question, it's based on our current salary levels. I think for the more senior of the two posts, actually, the salary we're able to offer is quite good, actually. I have more of a concern about the more junior of the two posts, but ultimately, in terms of sort of justifying and evidencing the need to offer more, the only way we can really do that is to advertise and be unsuccessful. Now here, as I said, I'm more confident about the more senior of the two posts. I've got a few concerns about the more junior one. Clearly, if we market it and we're unsuccessful, then that will form a strong business case in terms of offering more money to attract the right candidates. So yeah, so that's where we are.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Brewster Sarum, please.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Tim. That was a very excellent update. It is obviously disappointing that the external organisation has fallen away, and my question revolves around the timescales. You've given as if I've understood this correctly, you've appointed the senior project person for 18 months. The project manager will be for 2 years, and they're going to potentially start work in the early spring. Will that be enough time to complete the project, given the fact that the council term comes to an end in 2023? What will we be able to explain to the public watching and viewing as to what we've achieved by the time of the next council elections, given the fact that these roles are 18 months or 2 years? Are the roles long enough, and do you think that we will actually reach some form of agreement by the time of the election? Because obviously, I'm sure all members would welcome the opportunity for us actually to have delivered something further on the sites by that time. Obviously, I'm not saying what we should deliver, but I think that should be the aim and objective of all present today. So thank you very much for your indulgence, Chair, and that was my question.
Okay, thank you. Was that question aimed at Tim Child?
Well, Tim or any relevant person that would be able to answer if it was felt appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Tim, did you want to add a thing to that?
Yeah, Chair, yes, thank you. So in terms of previous updates that I provided to the delivery group, we talked about the first 6 months, once employees are in post, will be focused on looking at the various options across Exmouth, and bearing in mind this isn't just Queen's Drive, it's across Exmouth, undertaking a comprehensive piece of consultation and engagement with key stakeholders, partners, town council, the chamber, but also residents and businesses more generally, with a report. We were saying that during the summer, I think we said late summer, but during the summer, back through this group onto cabinet, setting out a series of options. And then it will be for members to decide which options they wish to proceed with. And that will then inform timescale of actual delivery. But in terms of the project plan, the first 6 months is very much these identifying what the current live projects are and the opportunities, and then consulting and engaging on those before a report comes back through this group onto cabinet.
Thank you very much, Tim. Most helpful.
Thank you. Okay. Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I mean, I'm very glad to hear this from Tim. I mean, just a question, if I can come to a question first, Chair, and then maybe just come back with some commentary. So can I just ask Tim, how do these timelines fit in with the local plan and how that may affect Queen's Drive delivery? I mean, I'll give you a hint as to the kind of answer I'd like to hear, which is I'd really like to see it have next to nothing to do with the local plan. It seems to me this is about Exmouth and needs to be done anyway. But I mean, Tim, as far as you know, you have to consider that presumably with Ed as we move along as well, or do you feel that you know, we are relatively free to make our own kind of agenda, so to speak?
Thank you. Tim?
Okay, the current position is that the two pieces of work aren't aligned in terms of timescale, and that is the report and the feedback that Ed Freeman provided at last delivery group meeting. And it is a concern, but clearly the sooner we can get resource in place to start working on this, the best we can try and dovetail with the local plan consultation. But the two currently aren't aligned.
Thank you. And Chair, can I just then come back with a quick comment, please,
yes, please,
if I may, which is, so as Tim pointed out, I mean, you, Chair, and I know many members of the committee were deeply disappointed that this hadn't managed to be progressed prior to now. And for absolute clarity, there's no blame attached to Tim in that at all. I know he's been doing his best. A whole series of external factors. but nevertheless, there is a feeling of some months that have been lost. So these recruitments are now absolutely critical. If they're made, and let's say when they're made, and I very much hope that's the case, I believe that then absolutely unlocks the potential of this committee, the people of Exmouth, the consultation process, to devise what now goes on. I think as a council and as a committee, we've coped extremely well with making sure, which was our first challenge, going back to late 2019, early 2020, was that 2020 went well, 2021 went well, and it has. 2021 has gone very well. We've now got to look to the medium and the long term and to what people actually want. And as Tim will know, and as you know, Chair, there is a lot of thought going on. Ideas are coming in from all sorts of parties, but what we've always needed is the sort of honest broker figures, a couple of officers to whom these ideas can be addressed for consideration to come back to us. So I'm glad it looks as if we're in reach of getting them. I have to say, if we don't get one, I'm quite tempted to, I don't know, I'll resign and I'll apply for that living job myself. I mean, I do not understand why nobody would want to do these jobs. It's the most fantastic opportunity. And I'm sure there are people, if we can, through this external company, get to them. I mean, I can think of 5 or 6 people who live in my ward who'd be brilliant at these roles. So I think if we can get the jobs, which has been done extremely well recently in the even more urgent recruitment matter for waste and recycling, but our Facebook promotion of our vacancies has been really outstanding. I think we need to get this one out there as well. You know, let's get some real enthusiasts for these jobs who are very happy to take what will, after all, be, you know, I think decently rewarded roles on a very exciting project. Thanks, Chair.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I would support your comments about the achievements of the past couple of years under the conditions of the pandemic. We have managed to keep things going, not brilliantly, but you know, we've done our best, and we've achieved something there. But we now need to move forward, and these two roles, these surveyor roles, are absolutely critical. And I will offer to do anything to help to do this, but I absolutely support Councillor Arnott's views there. Okay, right. Thank you very much, Tim, for that. That's very good. Okay, so now moving on to agenda item 6, the introduction by the Coastwatch Institution. I would like therefore to welcome Ivor Jones and Hugh D'Souza to the meeting to provide us with an introduction to the National Coastwatch Institution. So I will now hand over to Ivor and Hugh.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to talk to you. We've been in the lookout since 1998, and to be perfectly honest, we've managed to cope these many years. During the last pandemic period, we've been operational continuously since May 2020, 7 days a week, through the extraordinary efforts of our trained volunteers. And I have to say, their efforts over this period of time have been quite extraordinary. NCI at Exmouth is one of the very busiest stations in the UK. We have 57 stations around the coastline, and we at Exmouth recorded over 40 incidents during this year alone so far, where we have directly assisted the emergency services, and there have been in excess of about 35 recordable events, which are developing situations that we have assisted without necessarily engaging the emergency services. As far as an organisation is concerned, we report directly to Emergencies Coast Guard. We are deemed a key asset, and in that regard are part of HMCG, and they designate us as key workers and have done since the early days of the pandemic. We work very closely with the RNLI, and we have enjoyed tremendously good relationship with EDDC and Exmouth Town Council, and we thank them sincerely for their continuing and generous support, without which we simply would be unable to function. Despite the difficulties of the pandemic, we've made significant upgrades to our capability with the introduction of additional camera systems that give us a viewing capability looking north up the estuary as far as Topsham. And that has opened up an entire new area for us. And similarly, we have a camera at the Sideshore development pointing east towards Orkham Point, which has opened up an area that was denied us because of the various features along the coastline, trees and buildings and so on and so forth. They were expensive projects, collectively £10,000. We exist only with donations, despite the fact that we are a key asset of HMCG. We get no public money, whatever. We exist purely through the kindness of others, if you like, and we welcome our independence. But we have a situation where our ability to function is not really sustainable, and it doesn't. And the facility we have doesn't enable us to function in the way that we wish. We find that the age of the building, it's beginning to degrade our electronics. We find that the endless damp through the course of the winter is creating difficulties with some of this new sophisticated kit and equipment. And to be fair, it does compromise our ability to respond. We are active in liaising with the harbour master, and we provide radio checks for vessels, and we provide a very important radio link in the event of maydays or pampans with HMCG as a relay station. And any degradation in our equipment will very immediately compromise our ability to fulfill these roles. The other issue, of course, is very simply that we wish to expand our capabilities, and we are constrained right now from a project that we have in mind, which will give us further access eastwards. And we look upon this as a very important element of our expansion. We have screens and monitors in the lookout, which are new and already showing signs of degradation in the damp conditions. I really can't add much more than that, other than to say in the concept drawings that we've submitted that related to the original ideas that were thrown around in the sort of Hemingway days, you know, we were looking at something of the order of 23, 24 square meters, which would enable 3 watchkeepers to remain on duty. And with our increasing reliance in a way on CCTV, we need to have square footage, and we need to have a watchkeeper dedicated, if you like, to monitoring these camera systems if you're going to do it properly. And we simply don't have the space to do that. Our operating space at the moment is something like 5 square meters. And our wish list, if you will, was around 25 square meters. So we're working under some constraints, as you can guess. I think that's about all I can tell you as far as an overview of Coastwatch is concerned. We are committed to Exmouth. I like to think that we are valued by locals and visitors alike. I know we're viewed as an important element for HMCG, and we work closely with the RNLI and the Harbour Master, and all of these component parts come together to form a key element of the search and rescue capability of the UK, of which we are part. We're not a collection of well-meaning, enthusiastic amateurs that rock up every day and gaze out of the windows. We undergo an extensive training program, which lasts 6 to 7 months. We have some extraordinary skills and abilities in the station with the personnel that we have there. We have head teachers, doctors, senior military officers, naval commanders, search and rescue pilots, tanker captains, a whole raft of extremely experienced and capable individuals, all devoting their time to making this work and work well. And we are just about now at the point where it is sadly no longer sustainable. And I'd like to sort of hand over now to my colleague Hugh, who is my deputy station manager, who is actually an ex-police officer in the Met. He's in the diplomatic protection squad, so of some seniority, as you can imagine. And Hugh will perhaps fill in a little of the gutsy detail for you. Anyway, Hugh, carry on, please.
Thank you, Ivor. Thank you, committee. Thank you for inviting us to come along. Currently, the working area that we have in the lookout is about 7.5 foot by 9 foot. That's including the internal stairs. The net work area that we have is about 5 meters square. That's including the chart table. So even when we were in COVID and we were asked to stay 2 meters apart, that working arrangement wasn't possible. So during COVID and just after, we went to single person watches. The constraint of the building itself, apart from its square footage, which is where we struggle. The other thing is, as Ivor's already pointed out, the actual age of the building. It was built in 1897, and it's showing its age, unfortunately. It's a single skin brick building with Victorian mortar, and unfortunately the damp is seeping through that framework, and that in itself is affecting all our optics with mould. So the new CCTV that Ivor's alluded to earlier, even now is being affected by the damp, even in our new kit. So the issues that we have is that the area we are operating is far too small, and there is no room for expansion. As Ivor's said, we'd like to increase our visual footage along the coastline, but in order to do so and add more CCTV, which is what we'd like to do, we don't have the room. That's the problem. What we'd really like, another piece of kit that we'd probably like to have, we don't have any room for, is radar. That would mean we'd be able to look into the bay and in all kinds of weather and in all kinds of conditions. But again, we're constrained by the working space and by the area that we have. The building itself is quite high maintenance with internal damp, especially through the winter months. Our watchkeepers are physically standing in damp conditions. The condensation obviously affects our optics. Wind-driven rain that penetrates a single skin brickwork is the issue, or the major issue. And to be honest, the building wasn't built for the use that we're putting it through. It was built originally as a lookout as a starting post for the Yacht Club for their races. It was never meant as a lookout. It was never going to be used as a lookout, and since 1998 we've adapted it. The problem being is that the visual outlook is that we have blind spots, blind areas in each corner because of the way the windows are. The windows are too small. We don't have 160-degree visual all the way around, which is what we'd like. So we are constrained by blind spots and just by the shape of the building, unfortunately. The roofscape itself can be larger, or should be larger, to give us a bigger platform and to remove those blind spot buttresses. So that's really our issue with the building at the moment. It's in my opinion not fit for the purpose that we use it for. we'd like to incorporate, apart from just the working area of what we have, what we use Coastwatch House for, which is next door. We use that as a training area and a storage area. So if anything else is to be added to our facility, we'd need an area for training and need an area for storage. An idea came up that perhaps the new whatever was going to be added could incorporate a visitor centre. Currently, there's no Jurassic Visitor Centre in Exmouth, and Exmouth is continually being called on or looked at as the gateway to the Jurassic Coast, but there's no visitor centre at all. So whatever structure goes up there, we'd like to have something that possibly might incorporate a visitor centre that we could use as a training facility as well. So they're the things we'd like to have. I'd like to have further CCTV coverage along the coast. We know that areas along the coast that are getting calls by the RNLI and have had call outs this year have been further beyond Sandy Bay. So that's an area that we certainly like to get a visual on. So our next venture, we need more room, but we also need a bigger lookout. Ivor, back to you.
Hugh, thanks very much. That sums it up pretty well, really. I think we can really say little more to you, really, than to invite questions, if anybody has anything they'd like to put to us.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Ivor and Hugh. That was very interesting and informative. I'd like also to say thank you very much indeed for all the work that you're doing, which I'm sure has a very positive benefit upon the tourists who visit our town. Okay, right. So let's go back to the group, please, Sarah. And are there any non-members who wish to speak?
Councillor Ragg has a hand up, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ragg.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, I'd like to, first of all, thank both Hugh and Ivor for their most eloquent presentations this morning. They put it together so very well, what is needed. And I've followed Coastwatch for some years and at times have been able to give a helping hand. But really, when we lost the Coast Guard here, you know, they were all relocated. I don't know where the nearest one is now, but Coastwatch has replaced that void. They filled that void. And they very quickly built up a local knowledge of the coastline and what happens there, both on the beach and on the water. And they are very much valued in the community. In fact, I would say they're an invaluable resource. All volunteers, and to turn out and work in damp conditions like as they are doing. I mean, how many of us would do that? I would say very few indeed. So, and they also, with all that's happening on the seafront now and the Queen's Drive, we're encouraging people to come down, participate in water-based activities. And we've seen a huge increase over the years, massive increase. And as somebody who's lived here all their lives, it's complete contrast to what we had many years ago. So, you know, I would urge, I'm sure that this group will support Coastwatch in the just immeasurable service that they give to the community. We're encouraging visitors to come here, and part of that experience is to feel safe, to know that somebody's looking out for them, both on the beach and when they're on the water, because we know the sea can be unpredictable. It can be very calm. It can also be a very dangerous place. I think we should be investing in this if we can get money from the Public Loan Works Board. These people deserve better, and they deserve all the support that we can give. And I genuinely mean that. You know, this is heartfelt. They put up these cameras. They now have views of where they couldn't see before on the seafront. They're making it safe for everybody. So I think this is something major. Exmouth, as we know, was built up around maritime history, both fishing and naval. It was a fishing port. That's how it started off. So I'm sure that the Queen's Drive Delivery Group, who are looking to do the best that they can for Exmouth seafront, will get behind this and perhaps create some sort of premises where these people can operate in relative comfort, because it's not comfortable being on seafront in all weathers, and safety, and also to protect both them and their equipment. And thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Wragg. Sarah, do you have any other members outside the committee?
No other members outside the committee, Chair. There are
Okay,
5 members waiting to speak now.
No, wait a minute. I see Councillor Chapman is there. She's sat outside the committee. Is that right?
Oh, yes, she just put her hand up. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Chapman. Morning.
Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen, for the wonderful presentation. We do understand. I know some years ago when we had all the hoo-ha about the Queen's Drive development first started, and I happened to be mayor at the time. And I remember talking to Councillor Bill Nash, who I think Ivor also knew quite well. And we decided that whatever happened at Queen's Drive, that they would get a new watchtower which was fit for purpose. So I really hope that this committee will look to that, and whatever they decide to do with Queen's Drive, we do need a new tower. And I know the public were well behind it. So I just wanted to say, you know, well done, guys. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I can't see any more people outside the committee. Sarah, can you? No?
No, Chair.
Right, okay. Then Councillor Steve Gazzard, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Ivor and Hugh, for an excellent report. Firstly, could I say that we are very fortunate to have you based in Exmouth by volunteers, and I think that's a very important quote to make, that you are all volunteers. You give up your own time to protect us locals, visitors, and people from further afield. And without you, God knows what would happen along our seafront. You're under tremendous pressure, not only because of the terrible working conditions that you have to work in, but with the way that the sea has changed over the last 18 months or so, which is putting extra pressure on you. I really do like Councillor Eileen Wragg and Councillor Chapman has said. I really hope that this delivery group will get behind helping you with new premises, and I like the suggestion that you came up with, Hugh. That sounds a very good way forward. But it's quite clear to me that your building now is not fit for purpose, and if it was anywhere else, it would probably be condemned, because you wouldn't expect people to work there if they were being paid, but surely we don't expect people to work in conditions that you're working in for nothing. I've just got a couple of questions. I was interested to hear from Ivor that you don't get any funding whatsoever from national level. do other stations get any funding from national level? With the tower, do you have a height in mind for what the tower needs to be? Does it need to be bigger than what it is at the moment, please?
Thank you, Councillor Gazzard. Yes, it's extremely relevant, the points you make there. We get no funding from government. All our funding is donations through our central office or individually to stations. There is no other source of income. Despite the fact that we are deemed a key asset of HMCG, they give us no resources, but they do rely on the facilities that we can utilise. As far as tower height is concerned, the point that Hugh made about visibility is absolutely key. We could exist at the current height if we had adequate visibility, but the two buttresses pointing south sort of obscure a very large chunk of the area that we view. I think you'd be looking probably at what would be a 3-storey or 4-storey building to give us the adequate height. I think it would be unsuitable were it to be lower than we are now, and ideally higher.
Thank you.
Okay, right. Now, Councillor Young has been trying to raise his hand. Councillor Young, did you want to add anything?
Yes, please. Sorry, my hand kept dropping out for some strange reason. Thank you, Hugh and Ivor, for your explanation. I've always been a supporter of the Coast Watch. They do an absolute fantastic job. Yeah, it's all voluntary, and no, great credit to them. As an ex-boat owner, owning a boat in Exmouth, that estuary is very dangerous. It is ever-changing, very fast tides. I remember having to row out to my boat and in 7-8 knots, and thinking, if I don't grab this boat now, I'm going to be ending up in Topsham. It's that dangerous. Plus the extra boats that are on the estuary now, there's going to be a serious accident, and we've got to do everything possible to prevent that. And we need to give as much support as possible to this wonderful group. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Right, okay. So the next hand that I can see is Councillor Megan Armstrong.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Sorry, I thought somebody else was before me. Not quite ready. Thank you very much to the speakers, and I have to admit that I'm not a water person at all, but I recognise the importance of what you do, and I'm sorry that your volunteers have had to put up with the circumstances that you've had for so long. And yes, it seems as if you do definitely need a new facility there. But as a non-water person, and this might be a very naive question, I'd just like to know, well, there were 3 things I was going to say. What type of incidents do you deal with? You say you've had 40 incidents so far this year. I'd just be interested, just very briefly, to know what kind of incidents they are, just for information, really. I was going to ask about the no public money that Councillor Gazzard has just asked about. And I'm just wondering whether any pressure has been put on government to try and push that along a bit. I guess it probably has been, but I just find that appalling. I really do find that appalling, that you're carrying out such an important job with no public funding at all. And then the third thing was, have you any idea how much money you would need? What kind of, if you're looking at the kind of facilities that you ideally would like, has anybody given any idea as to the cost, the money that you would need to do that? So they're my sort of 3 questions, if that's all right, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy to respond to that. The sort of incidents that we deal with are incredibly varied. And it rather depends on the time of year. I mean, during the summer period, to be perfectly honest, every risk that you can imagine is evident at Exmouth. You've got high cliffs, coastal walkers, dangerous sands, shifting sands in fairness. You've got a tidal race of anywhere between 5 and 7 knots on an ebb tide, which is extremely difficult. And you have a dangerous bathing beach to the east of our lookout, and endless visitors who are unaware of the local risks. Now you can add into that particular mix the visitors to town that come with their jet skis. They are unaware of the difficult conditions. They are very often reckless in their behavior, and they, to be honest, create hazardous conditions for other boat users. And we work closely with the harbour master in respect of putting some sort of lid on that particular issue. We will have situations from vessels at sea where there may be pan-pan or mayday calls. The Coast Guard, the radio systems that we use are VHF short-range shortwave systems, and they are line of sight. So if a vessel is sending out a mayday or a pan-pan call to HMCG, HMCG may well not hear it, but we might. And if we hear it, we then act as a relay station. And we will then coordinate with the RNLI to vector their response craft to the target incident. We get swimmers and youngsters on inflatables, which are incredibly dangerous and very evident in these last couple of years. And we will liaise with the lifeguards, the RNLI lifeguards, and we have a brilliant working relationship with them. And we observe the beaches, and if we see any situations or developing situations of risk, we will communicate that directly to the lifeguards, and they know that when we call them, it's not for some trivial reason. It's because it's a situation that we've observed for a while, and it's not got any better, and we think it's time that there was a response generated. So you can have a complete raft of incident types. It could be simple groundings of vessels, vessels that are adrift, sea hazards, that when we've had some storms, we've seen some extraordinary sea hazards that have been moving through that will be a hazard to other boats or even shipping if they got out into the shipping lanes. When you think that we're an island nation and there is no other national organisation providing coastal surveillance, just us, nobody else.
Yeah.
And our coastal surveillance relates not just to safety at sea. We report through to Border Force. We are actively engaged and mindful of unlawful acts, of people smuggling, of arms smuggling, drug smuggling. We are alert and briefed routinely on issues that will be of concern or where our surveillance and observation will be of value to either the police or Border Force or HMCG. So there are an entire range of issues that we are involved with, not least just communicating with local boat operators and providing a radio link with them. Radio checks are absolutely critically important. And we monitor life belt use. You know, we look at vessels that are moving past, and times without number, we've seen a small rib going by with mummy, daddy, 2 children and a dog, and the only creature with a life belt on was the dog. So there is more likely you see an out of towner. They come in with great enthusiasm and interest on a nice sunny day to beautiful Exmouth. And really, they have very little idea what they're doing. They have no idea of the local hazards, of which there are truly many. And sometimes you couple their ignorance with reckless behavior, and you have a hazard not just to themselves, but other boat users in the area. So, you know, the list of risks at Exmouth goes on and on and on. It really is a dangerous place, in fairness, but beautiful.
Just, I'll just add to, sorry, I'll just add to that. Of the 40 incidents we've had thus far this year, which in fact is more incidents than we've had last year, and mainly that's because this year everybody had staycations, and of course the southwest was the place to be, and Exmouth, I'd suggest, was the place to be in the southwest. So those incidents, that number has increased from last year and has increased over the last few years exponentially. So we're seeing more incidents, and the incidents that Ivor's alluded to can be quite, with the water sports centre having that many kite surfers out, all it takes is for a kite surfer to get in difficulty, get tangled in their kit. Nobody see them. We'll keep a watch on them whilst they're out there. And it's those kind of incidents where a kite surfer has come in difficulty, or even just got tired and is now being washed down the very fast flowing tide that we have. So it'll be an incident as small as that, or our inflatables that are unattended by mum and dad because they don't know their visitors and they don't know the strength of the tide going out. And the other thing I'd like to point out is we have our own dedicated channel 65, and because this last summer has been extraordinarily busy for the Coast Guard have actually encouraged mariners to use their local NCI stations on channel 65 for radio checks. So because they're just really busy coordinating all sorts of other things. So we've been told by HMCG that we're an asset, and that channel 65 should be used for radio checks in order to free up what is the emergency channel, channel 16, rather than use that for radio checks. So not only do we give radio checks, but we have our own weather station. So local mariners can call us and we can give them up-to-date local weather information. So it's those kind of assets or those kind of things that we supply to visiting mariners as well as locals who are going out for the day.
Thank you.
Sorry, back to you, Ara.
Okay, great.
Yeah, thanks, Hugh. That was a really useful summary.
Nick, sorry.
Yes, Councillor Armstrong. Yes.
Could they answer the other two questions I had, please?
Remind us,
about the finance.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
As far as cost is concerned, we would anticipate that we would fit out any new tower. And we would achieve that by local fundraising and by accessing through a CapEx grant some central funds from revenue generated on a national basis, which is again only generated through donations, and it's usually money clawed back from stations above budget. So we have an operating budget, and money that is raised at individual station level above the budget expenditure, or in extremis unusual expenditure, goes back into a central fund. And that central fund can then be accessed on application by an individual station for projects. And that would be twinned with additional local fundraising at say, Exmouth level. When we hopefully at some stage get a new facility, we don't expect it to be fitted out for us. We expect to equip it and fit it out to our own requirements ourselves. And that is done with, as I say, local and a bit of central fundraising.
Yeah.
But there'll be no government funding, that's for sure.
Oh, Chair, could I just come back in on that? Sorry, I'm taking a bit longer than I should. So the bottom line, I suppose, as a council for us is, or the question I'd like to ask is, would you be asking for money from the council to do this? And I'm not saying that we wouldn't do it at all. I'm not in a position to say that or not. I would like to think we could help, yeah. But also, has there been any pressure put on the government at any time over however many years to to ensure that you've got at least some core funding, even if it's not everything that you need. At least they're giving something towards this essential service.
Well, from a financial point of view, National Coast Watch is in a pretty healthy position. Fundraising is consistent and active and vigorous at all of the 57 stations. And there are efforts centrally through our Board of Trustees to fundraise. So we are not an impoverished organisation, but nevertheless, there is such an expansion requirement that we're always seeking funding. We obviously locally would go out to interested parties, to organisations and local authorities to see whether or not they were in a position to assist. But we certainly wouldn't expect it. If there was an offer of a few bob from EDDC or Exmouth Town Council, we'd be thrilled to bits.
Yeah, okay.
But the bulk of the money we would expect to raise ourselves through our own fundraising efforts.
Right, okay. Thank you ever so much for all those detailed answers. Much appreciated.
It's a pleasure.
From both of you. Thank you.
Okay, right. Now I have 3 speakers who have been waiting very patiently to speak. They are in this order of Councillor Desarum, Councillor Arnott and Councillor Rowland. So I'll get to you guys in a moment. So Councillor Desarum, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I was going to very briefly say that I think, as Councillor Ragg and Councillor Chapman said earlier on in the debate, it is very important that we put something in place that the public get behind. And what I'm hearing from the gist of people's comments and questions is that we seem to find favour with this project. So I'd ask to make a recommendation to this meeting today that we actually put this project to be scoped out to the senior project officer that we're going to employ. I'm not suggesting we make any decisions today, but one of the recommendations is that we put it to this project officer to scope out and see how it will be done. And also, I must also thank Hugh and Ivor for a very excellent presentation. So that was my very brief point to make, that I'd like to put it to members who are on this panel, that we actually put it to be scoped out when the officer is appointed, so that we can then go back to the Coast Watch and explain how far we've made progress with the idea, or not, as the case may be. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, Chair. I, because of timing, I simply can't improve on what Councillors Ragg or Gazard or Chapman said with their local knowledge. I mean, I've been going there for nearly my entire life, sort of child, student, and now 60 on the 11th of November. And I've seen the changes. I've seen the changes in terms of the amount of construction around the area, but also the ecological, environmental changes as well, the shifting sands, literally. I cannot overstate, quite seriously, my own personal admiration for the work that you do. And thank you, Ivor and Hugh, today so much for talking to us. Although we can't meet in person because of COVID restrictions and so forth right now, I really look forward to a meeting when we can. And perhaps down there as well, and perhaps see if we can all fit into that tiny space. I suspect we'll bring it down if we all do. I agree with Councillor Desarum. I'm not sure about the necessity for a recommendation, but I'll be advised on that. And I think actually this may feed through into Part B and our future consideration of what may happen at the Harbour View Cafe, because after all, they are almost one domain, aren't they? They're sort of interconnected, and there are possibilities there that might be quite exciting to serve the needs of both, and perhaps even create some other capacity there. But I think that's all I'll say, other than just to formally thank Ivor and Hugh for their excellent accounts today. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Jack Rowland, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll echo what everybody else has said and say a huge thank you to Ivor and Hugh for the information they've provided. I'm a Londoner born and bred, but the very reason I moved to the area that I live in Sutton, was the fact that my partner's father was the Coast Guard in Beer. And after he retired, he did need some assistance in his later life, which is the very reason we moved here. But having heard the stories that he used to relay to me, and having received bravery awards for saving lives, I'm totally aware of the fantastic work that's carried out by Coastwatch and the Coast Guard. So it's very close to my heart, this whole subject. Having heard the state of the building, it seems absolutely ridiculous that the technology that you have to work with is operating from a building which is single skim, open to, in effect, open to the elements in that location. So I would really like to think that we could do something about this in terms of either building it into the capital programme for East Devon as we're approaching budget planning time, or, as has been said as well, when we actually manage to employ the project manager, that it can be built into the work that they're going to be doing. In terms of the fundraising, one thing that does occur to me in terms of fitting out when it hopefully gets to that stage is to be able to use crowdfunding as well, because crowdfunding, in my experience of chairing relevant grant application committees on East Devon over the past year, there has been many successful operations with crowdfunding, has raised considerable amounts of money, which also opens the door to being able to apply for more money from East Devon in terms of additional grant money. So when it gets to that stage, I would encourage that potential avenue to be explored further. So I would echo again, huge thanks to both of you for the information you supplied today and for all the work that you do. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. I have Councillor Aurora Bailey, who's been waiting very patiently. Councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to thank the Coast Guard. They do an amazing job. And I was thinking exactly the same along the lines of the crowdfunding. I did wonder whether that would be an idea to see if that could be used. And I would like to, as a member of this committee, support that we somehow do help the Coastwatch. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. I can't see any other hands. Sarah, are there any other hands there?
Yes, Chair. Councillor Davey and also Tim Child has his hand up, and Councillor Arnott has his hand up.
Okay, yeah, okay, sorry. Right, so Councillor Davey, let's go to you, please.
Thank you, Chair. I seem to become invisible this morning because I did have my hand up earlier to ask a question of Tim, but maybe I could ask it later. Just for absolute clarity, and I'm sure everybody else on this call knows this, but I don't, and just for anybody listening, who actually owns the building at the moment? And what is the current arrangement? What's the current leasing arrangements? And I take it would be East Devon District Council who would be paying and supplying this building and paying for it. And I'm just wondering if Ivor or Hugh is aware of any other funding opportunities, any other funding streams that might help to defray the cost of that. Thank you.
Thanks. Well, the arrangement with regard to the lookout is effectively an unofficial arrangement with EDDC. The arrangement with regard to Coastwatch House, which used to be the old first aid station there, is that we lease it from EDDC, but there is no charge. So we function through the generosity of others, even in respect of the buildings currently. And I know that may necessarily not continue with any future development, but that's fine. As far as other fundraising is concerned, as I said, when we have a clarity of timeline and likely need, we can then begin to specifically fundraise against that particular requirement. And we can make application to our National Board of Trustees for a CapEx grant, as they refer to it, which obviously we can only do when we got some specific numbers in mind and a specific timeline in mind. But we will approach organizations, interested organizations, and it will be a big project. You know, even if there is the structure of a building available to us, to fit it out, we wouldn't necessarily want to move some of our optics because they have been degraded over time, and it's rather pointless to shift old optics into a new facility. So we would try to replace with as much new kit and equipment as we can. Our camera systems are all new, and although beginning to suffer, are still absolutely fine, but that won't last, of course. And we would simply transfer that kit and equipment. But there is a lot of kit there that probably we would seek to replace with new. So when we get a timeline, when we get some clarity about what we may be able to inhabit and a clear idea of how we want to fit it out and what square footage may be available to us, then we can embark on a serious fundraising exercise. Does that answer your question?
If I just come in there also, with regards to timeline, that's been our problem really, not having a timeline. For instance, this winter, we know we're getting damp. We'd like to do something about the outside walls of the building. So we're thinking, do we spend money that we've raised from fundraising to make the place as watertight as we can, or if there is a future for a new building, do we hang on, don't spend that money because it'll be wasted? That it's having a timeline, that's what we haven't had for so long, and that we're desperate to at least get an idea of as to where we move forward. So coming back to how this project is going to evolve. And the only other thing I'd like to say is, at the moment, the Lookout is integral as a building to Harbourview Cafe, but of course we still have the footprint of Coastwatch House next door. So, in essence, whatever does move forward doesn't necessarily have to be integral with Coastwatch with Harbourview. We could have a separate, bespoke, standalone something on the site of Coastwatch House that doesn't have to be integrated into Harbourview at all. So that's another possibility.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Now, Sarah, is there anybody else with a hand up, please?
Tim Child has his hand up, Chair.
Okay, right. Okay, thank you. Tim, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just sort of very briefly, really, but I wanted to come in particularly on the back of the recommendation that Councillor de Serra made, and I think Councillor Bailey was probably supporting, because there's quite a lot of background to this. So as expected, and yeah, Hugh and Ivor, great to have you along today and to sort of listen to your thoughts. There is a lot of background to this. Ivor, you'd referred to some concept plans. So yeah, I've seen those concept plans. Indeed, I believe that colleagues of mine worked with you on those plans back in probably sort of 2018, 2019 time. Right. And I've seen lots of emails sort of to and fro from you. So yeah, so what I've been hearing today doesn't come as any surprise whatsoever. I suspect as technology's moved on over the last sort of 2 years or so, some of how you will kit the building out might have changed, but in terms of the fabric around what you need, the shape of the space, the size of the space, I suspect that's all exactly as it was a couple of years ago. So yeah, I suppose for sort of everyone's sort of wider knowledge, yeah, we worked with Coastwatch, I think it was back into 2019, and agreed a new design at that time, and it was incorporated into the work that Hemingway Design did. And indeed, we then outlined the proposal within the cabinet report that I can't remember when it was, probably beginning of 2020. having at that stage already agreed that we would accommodate Coastwatch within a new development. So that's sort of the background to this. We also had high level costings of the Coastwatch requirements. So we'd costed the actual build needed. And our consultants at the time, Lambert Smith Hampton, had built it into the viability modelling, and assuming a comprehensive redevelopment of that site, it was all built and costed within the viability. So I'm sure things will have sort of moved on over the last sort of couple of years, particularly around the kit, but certainly there's a lot of background already there in terms of the proposals. And I am still, from what I'm hearing today, I'm still hearing that there's as you'd expect really, that there's a continuing support for Coastwatch. So I hope you don't mind me coming in, but I just wanted to sort of set out that sort of background context. So thank you, Chair.
Yes, excellent, thank you.
Right, thank you, Tim. Yes. Okay. Any other hands up, Sarah, that I've missed?
Yes, Councillor Arnott.
Okay, Councillor Arnott, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just trying to find a way to capture what Councillor Desarum has said, but also I'm just wondering, Chair, whether we might carry this item over, a decision on this report today, until the next meeting. Because clearly what we will need is a report on it, won't we? But as Tim has just indicated, there is so much to capture in this now. And I suspect what this committee has indicated today is its great enthusiasm and backing for this. And I'm not entirely sure what Councillor Desarum is asking us to do, other than suggest it be a piece of work for the project manager to be appointed. I think my concern would be that I utterly agree with Councillor Desarum, but I'd like to see some consideration of that going on more or less straight away, really, rather than wait for that. So I'm just not quite sure, Chair, how you might advise we capture our enthusiasm without necessarily recommending a direct action at this stage.
Well, clearly the mood of the meeting is that Coastwatch has to be given a new facility, as the present one is unfit for purpose, and we must, I think, move immediately to thinking about how we're going to do that, because clearly officers will have to have further discussions with Coastwatch, Ivor and Hugh, who've been very eloquent in their requirements, and the position is absolutely, I think, essential. We absolutely must do this. The work is invaluable and crucial for safety, all those people who use the water and the beach. So I think the need is absolutely justified. We need to get on with this as quickly as possible. We have a forward plan item at the moment, an next agenda item. I think that should go into the forward plan, and I think we should ask officers to proceed with this as soon as possible. Now, whether that's by recommendation or whether it's by forward plan, Tim, what would you like? What would you prefer?
Thank you, Chair. So you stole my thunder, Councillor, because I was just going to say it feeds in nicely to the forward plan agenda item. Yeah. But yeah, I think what would be, it's obviously it's a member decision, but what I'm thinking is perhaps acknowledging the continuing support by the group to supporting Coastwatch. In terms of the work that then needs to follow through officers, that is dependent on the resource element that we talked about earlier, and it's also it has to be considered as part of the wider scheme, because there's the key viability issue, so it needs to be considered alongside Harbourview Cafe site, which obviously we're going to be hearing about later, but also the Queen's Drive site. So I think we can sort of acknowledge support, but in terms of sort of decisions, the decisions need to come, I think, from in terms of a bigger decision regarding the uses that will take place on each of those sites.
Okay, I'm going to disagree with you on one point there, and that is, I think that this matter is so important that it needs to be dealt with separately from any other issue, because we do need to, I think, move in parallel with this as well as with the other developments. We need to, we have an agenda item I'll have with you later. We don't know what that's going to say, but I think the issue here is clearly the view of the of this committee meeting that we must move on with a new Coast Watch Tower, and that has to have some considerable priority to that, because it is a matter, put bluntly, as almost a matter of life and death, because we have a large number of water users. We must do everything we can to maintain that security and safety, and therefore we must proceed with a new Coast Watch Tower immediately. I think we must look into that immediately. We must work with Coast Watch, and we must also consider the financial implications, as Councillor Rowland indicated earlier on when he mentioned about putting it into the capital building programme. I think it is absolutely essential that we view the Coast Watch Tower as an independent item. Now, I've got a couple of hands up. Before I come back to you, Tim, I'll give you a moment to think about what I've just said. Councillor Brewster-Sarum, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I was going to say thank you very much for that, Chair. And I totally endorse what you said. And I believe that it should go on a regular item for the forward plan, because clearly, as you said, it's a life and death issue, and it's not something that we can put to one side. So I think we need to follow up the Cabinet report of 2020. We need to do all the necessary research, and we need to bring ourselves to the position where we are now able to go further forward for it. And I think that once we've got the senior projects officers in post, we will then be able to take it further, and we'll also be able to move with the Lambert consultants, their report. We'll be able to look at their report, see where we are with Hemingway, and I think we need to get the ball rolling, as it were, as you rightly said, and we actually need, and that's why I recommended it, but I'm happy to have it noted and added to the forward plan, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor Desarm. That would be very helpful. Yes, indeed. Right. Tim, did you wish to come back at that point? No, okay, all right, okay. Right, so I can't see any other hands. Sarah, are there any other hands?
Yes, Chair, Councillor Rowland and Councillor Gazzard.
Oh, right, okay. Okay, Councillor Jack Rowland, please.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to come back again. It was really coming back on the point that Tim was making. I must admit, personally, I wasn't aware of that Cabinet report from 2020, bearing in mind there's a different Cabinet in place now. So rather than having to reinvent the wheel when we're looking at the forward plan, I would be very interested to see that report and be able to read it, because no doubt, although it might need some finessing, the gist of it will probably stand the test of time as to what we need to look at now.
Okay, right. Thank you very much. Councillor Gazzard, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to endorse what you said. We have to move forward urgently with this request, because, and you're absolutely right, Chair, it is a matter of life and death, because we're hoping that, you know, next summer we're going to be inundated with tourists again, but we need to start work on this. And I know Tim says that, you know, there's already a lot of history behind that, so we're on a starter with that as it goes, but we need to move forward urgently with this, because it's desperately needed. So I'm happy to support what you said, Chair.
Okay, thanks so much indeed. Right, okay. So, Sarah, I can't see any other hands. Are there any?
Yeah, Councillor Armstrong has her hand up.
Oh, sorry. Yes, okay. Yes, Councillor Armstrong, please.
Sorry, Chair. Thank you for letting me in again. Just very quickly, just going back to Councillor Rowland's comment about the 2019, was it 2018 report, which I think Tim referred to as the Hemingway design. Is that right, Tim? If that's the case, that design, as I remember it, included the Coast Watch within the Harbour View building. Now, my personal view is, and it is a personal view, I've not discussed it really with anybody else, but it should be separate. We should get on with it as soon as possible. It should be separate and it should be fit for purpose. And it's urgent because, as one of the speakers said, sorry, I've got to get my glasses on to look at your name. Who? Sorry. You need a timeline. You need a timeline. We've got to think of the volunteers' safety and the essential work that you do. So I would just like to push this along as soon as we can, accepting the fact that we have to think about resources. But yeah, and just a warning to Councillor Rowland that report, that design, as far as I remember, was part of Harbour View, and that might not be appropriate now, but okay, we'll wait and see. Thank you, Chair, very much.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Right, okay, so there are no further speakers, is that correct, Sarah?
Yes,
right.
That's correct.
Okay, right, so we'll put this item on the forward plan, which is the next agenda item. But in the meantime, I must offer my very grateful thanks to Ivor and to Hugh for their most excellent presentation and your understanding in dealing with our questions and providing answers to those questions. So thank you very much indeed. We look forward to working with you over this new tower very shortly indeed, because we all understand how important it is and how urgent the need is. So thank you very much indeed, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Could I just say how much we appreciate your support and your kind comments and your generous thoughts. It means a great deal, and hopefully things can move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Okay, so moving on to agenda item 7, the forward plan discussion. Tim.
Chair, can I just, sorry to butt in before Tim.
Yeah.
I haven't got the forward, is the forward plan a document within the agenda? Because
no.
Okay, so sorry, thank you.
That's why I'm going to Tim. No, okay.
Thank you, Chair. This is, in terms of my input into this agenda item, this it is very, very brief. We are now building momentum in terms of these meetings, and therefore I've put forward a proposal that a forward plan may be useful to sort of inform future meetings. Yes. The next meeting itself is the end of November, so every 6 weeks. That meeting, I suspect, will be, well, certainly one agenda item will need to be temporary uses for next year. So following the September delivery group meeting, colleagues and I had a really good site meeting last week with LED, who operate the bar, and also a number of the traders, and we had a good look around the site as well. Really good. And I'll be bringing back an agenda. I'm proposing to bring back an agenda item to the November meeting in terms of sort of detail as to how we go about securing the uses and for the next season. So that's certainly one item for the next agenda with the chair's support, but. I just think it would be useful perhaps to start sort of mapping out a forward plan. And that's, to be honest, that's really all I wanted to say really. And it's, I suppose, over to members as to whether you're supportive of that. And if so, or if not, and if you are, possible items for inclusion within that forward plan.
Thank you, Tim. Okay. Sarah, do we have any hands up, please?
Councillor Gazzard.
Okay, Councillor Gazzard, please.
Thank you, Chair. Well, quite obviously, one of the items in the forward plan has got to be the Coast Watch Tower. There's no doubt in my mind whatsoever on that. So that needs to be on there. Could I just ask Tim, when do you intend to put in for the full planning application then for the temporary events that are on there? Will that be in the forward plan as well, please?
I can update, and I'd probably update at the November meeting. It was a recommendation from this group in September. It went to Cabinet beginning of October. I've now made contact with the engineers team for them to support me in putting an application in ready for the middle of February when the consent expires. So in terms of sort of a political steer, I already have that, so that's now progressing. But obviously I can update the delivery group sort of as we sort of continue through until February.
Okay, thank you very much. I can see Councillor Bailey has her hand up. Councillor Bailey. You're mute. Oh, you're muted.
All right, I couldn't get the button off. Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to ask Tim, for the next meeting, will this involve, I'm passionate about the play park. I'm just wondering, with all what's going on, I agree the Coast Watch should be up front. That's brilliant. I agree with that. I'm just asking, personally, and as a councillor, with lots of people saying to me about the park, is there any chance, please, that the park, along with all what's going on, we've got a lot going on now, can it be extended a bit for the older children? And that piece of grassland, which was the former car park, is not being used very much, is it? It's quite a big area. Could we not extend the dinosaur park into there a bit? Only as something to be seen to be doing while all this is being sorted out, because we're a long way to go yet. And it's been a long time coming along anyway. Please, Chair, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think actually what you've just been talking about, requesting, Councillor Bailey, will probably come under the temporary uses update, because that will involve the events staff who will be booking the events for next year. Tim, have I got that right?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, that's correct. Can I just sort of express just a little bit of caution over that, which is that when we looked at the extending the play area previously, it is expensive. Ultimately, there's a piece of work which we've spoken about earlier in terms of the new resourcing to come back later next summer in terms of future options for members to consider. And I suppose there's just sort of the question of, do we want to invest a further significant sum for something that may or may not be temporary? But that's ultimately a member's decision. But I just thought I'd just mention that. But if members would like me to, then I can investigate an approximate cost and bring that back to the committee.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bailey, you wanted to come back on that?
I would, please, Chair, thank you. I'd just like to say, Tim, I have looked into this, and apparently if the play park is extended and it goes on for 10 years or more, there is something that could be introduced into helping to fund it. I have heard this from an actual officer. So I have looked into it, and I'm really passionate about it, because I think at the moment, with all what's going on, we've got to look out for the children as well as the adults. I understand all what you're saying, but I understand that if it's going to be open for 10 years, there is funding for it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we'll bear that in mind. Okay, right. So I've got down, just to check, Tim, that we agree, I've got down 3 items for the forward plan. Number 1 is the temporary uses update. Number 2 will be the Coast Watch Tower project. And number 3 will be the planning application. Okay, you happy with that? Yeah.
Yeah, Chair, the planning application, it will just be a very simple update just to say that, yes. We're now progressing it. But
we need to keep that on the forward plan, so that is that's kept on the boil, so to speak. Right, okay. Sarah, do we, yes?
Yes,
Sarah?
Chair, Councillor Davey has his hand up.
Right, okay. Councillor Davey, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's the invisible man again. A couple of things. Ed mentioned at the last meeting the need for this to form part of the local plan as it's a major project. And I'm just wondering, perhaps Tim can advise us, what level of detail is going to be required in that? Would it be enough for us to kind of zone the areas of the seafront as the type of development that would go in there? I mean, obviously we can't put specific plans in, but I'm just wondering what level of detail would be needed. We've also heard from Coast Watch that they're going to need a 3-storey building at least, and it seems to me there is a possibility for other uses of the lower stages of the building. So I'm wondering whether it might not be appropriate to integrate that with the harbour view, so you could have a cafe on the ground floor, perhaps a visitor centre on the second floor, and Coast Watch on the third, unless they have plans to use the other levels of the building as well. Yeah, perhaps Tim could just advise on the level of detail we'll require in order for that to form part of the local plan.
Tim.
Okay. I suppose to answer that in detail, I'd need to liaise with Ed Freeman again. This is obviously his specialism, not mine. But the fundamental issue here, and I'm sorry if I don't want to sort of come across as sort of negative or putting problems in place, but it's around the sequencing of this. So within the local, so through this project, we are going out to consultation to engage with the public about what those future uses will be. And I suppose we keep coming back to, but there's already ideas. And I suppose, so yes, I could liaise with my planning colleagues and firm up, well, these might be the schemes that these might be these are likely to be the eventual uses. And for that to inform the local plan. But actually, we don't know what the uses are going to be because we haven't yet done that engagement piece of work, and that does concern me. I can, if you'd like, Councillor David, I can get some sort of further detail from Ed Freeman. But in terms of it's not so much the level of detail; it's about the sequential steps needing to consult and engage before we determine what those future uses will be, which would then at that stage then start to go through the planning process.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. I think I'm okay with what you've just said there, but I did notice in the minutes there was talk about whether an outline planning application was required or whether you want to go to a full planning application. What are your thoughts about that, Tim?
Sorry, Chair. In terms of the minutes from the last meeting,
yes, that was mentioned. If we have to fit into the local plan, do we have to have an outline planning permission, or do we can go straight to a full planning permission?
It comes down to what are those uses going to be,
all right.
And until we've gone out to consult, we don't know what those uses are going to be.
Right. Okay.
It's difficult. Would we could include as on the forward plan to bring Ed back into this discussion if you would like. Now that might be the best way to deal with it, actually.
Okay,
to bring Ed back in. We could include him on the November meeting with just a bit more. So we now have we're now in a bit more advanced in terms of Coast Watch. We've also got at the end of November we'll have a bit more certainty around the resourcing levels and bring Ed and the planning service back in, because clearly the two projects do need to dovetail as well as they can together. So yeah, we can include that in the forward plan if you would like.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed. Sarah, do we have any more hands up, please?
Yes, we do, Chair. Councillor Arnott, followed by Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. Councillor Arnott, please.
Thank you very much. I do feel very professionally introduced like this when the chair goes. It's like a most fantastic radio show, isn't it? This, and who do we have on line 3? And I'm glad not to be invisible, like poor Councillor Davey. I'd like to agree with Councillor Davey. It's not really relevant at this point, Chair, but I think we mustn't. We shouldn't discount the possibility of something happening that benefits both the Harbour View site and the Coast Watch together at this stage. But I was actually putting my hand up, and Tim's taking the words out of my mouth. Could we have Ed at the next meeting? That would be brilliant, because I think that I think it's quite obscure, isn't it, the way in which, or to many members anyway, including me, quite how we go along pace by pace, aligned with each other with the local plan. I think clarity on that would be very helpful. So if that in itself goes in the forward plan, can Ed see us next time? That's very helpful. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Right, thank you. Councillor Armstrong, please.
Just very quickly, it's just to clarify. So it's a question for Tim, really, about the consultation. Do I understand correctly that that cannot be done until we have the new officers in place? Is that what we originally agreed, and is that still correct? Or does it need to go in the forward plan, the consultation? If it's already considered and it's already in the sort of on track, then perhaps it doesn't need to go in the forward plan. I just wanted to clarify the consultation bit, really. Thank you.
Chair, would you like me to respond direct?
Yes,
yeah.
Please.
Yeah, so we've talked at previous meetings about the need for this consultation engagement to be done properly, to be given the time and the resource that it needs, and therefore, yes, that we do need those new posts to be in place to undertake that consultation, which will then inform the options paper that comes to members later next summer.
Yeah, thank you. I thought that was so. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Right. Okay. Sarah, any more hands?
No, no more hands, Chair.
Right. Okay. In that case, we will now move forward to our part B, matters for consultation in private session.
Chair, if you could just give us a moment to just stop the live streaming and make sure that the correct people are in the meeting, then we'll come back to you when we've done that.
Let me just say that brings the public part of our meeting to an end, and I would like to thank members of the public for their attendance. There will now be a short pause to allow Democratic Services officers to stop the live stream. Members, can I remind you that until the live streaming has stopped, you can still be seen and heard, and any comments may be